Dear esteemed guests, Asadallah masa'akum bi kulli khair. Hello, my name is Maurice Pomerantz, and I'm the Executive Director of the NYU Abu Dhabi Institute. As many of you know, this is an interdisciplinary center for advanced research, artistic creation, and of course, public outreach. I'm also a professor of classical Arabic literature here at NYU Abu Dhabi. Many of you know this, but throughout the course of this semester, we've held talks on Mondays and Wednesdays from 6 p.m. to 7:30. We'll continue this schedule throughout the rest of this semester and next. I'd like to tell you about two upcoming events, which I hope you'll put in your agendas. This Wednesday at 6 p.m., we'll have Professor Onoso Imaojene, who's our very own professor and program head of social research and public policy, talking about her recent book entitled Structured Luck: How U.S. Immigration Policy Affects Immigrants. Of course, an important topic today in the U.S. and around the world. So that's this Wednesday at 6 p.m. And then on Monday, December 9th, because we have something of a break because of National Day, but we're coming back on December 9th, Monday, with a talk entitled Rethinking Antibiotics, which is a partnership that we have with at the NYUAD Science Division. But tonight, it is my pleasure to introduce Mohammed Qasimi, who is an associate professor of mechanical engineering and bioengineering. Professor Qasimi works on microfluidic and MEMS devices, which are miniature machines, are they not? Related to tonight, he also teaches a course on machines in Islamic civilization, which sounds like it would be a wonderful course for me, I thought. And undoubtedly that course, I bet, went back to that golden age that we're going to talk about tonight as well, where I remember looking as a graduate student at those amazing 12th century drawings of a Jazari and his work entitled Kitab fi Ma'rifat al-Hiyal al-Handasiyya, the book on the knowledge, I would call it, maybe translate it, the feats of engineering, maybe. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. For now, I'll cede the floor to him to introduce our guest speaker, who will have undoubtedly far more interesting things to say about this wondrous history. So take it away.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Maurizio. I find it always very impressive when you speak Arabic. I love it, and you do it very well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Masai al-khair. Good evening, and welcome to everyone here to NYU Abu Dhabi. So my name is Mohammed. My colleague already introduced me. And he mentioned that, I do mechanical engineering / bioengineering, but one of the courses I teach is very relevant to what we're having today, which is machines in Islamic civilization. And many of the students I see over here, they're joining. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this outstanding public talk delivered by our distinguished speaker, Dr. Hayat Sindi. Hayat meaning life for those who do not speak English. And I think she has many, many aspects and lessons in life that she will share her wisdom with us today. Also, my wife and my children are here, and my wife and Dr. Hayat also are good friends. She made sure that she will come and join this public talk. So Dr. Hayat is no stranger to NYU Abu Dhabi. She visited us last year, gave a talk at an event organized by the Engineering Committee for Inclusion, Diversity, Belonging, and Equity. And many of you existing or here attending today had the opportunity to meet her the last time. She's a longtime friend of mine, and I know that she serves as a role model for many around the world, especially for women and young females in STEM fields, including my wife and two of my daughters. Also, my son, he's a big fan of her and her work. So we hope to continue having the honor of hosting you, Dr. Hayat, in many future events to come. Dr. Hayat Sindi is a Saudi biotechnologist and a global champion for science, technology, and social innovation. She is a pioneering and inspiring female leader working to improve lives worldwide through her firm belief in the power of science, technology, and innovation to address the world's most pressing challenges. So a vision and a mission that resonate very well with NYUAD. Dr. Hayat holds 9 patents for a groundbreaking machine that combines light and ultrasound for the early detection of breast cancer. She was the first woman from the Gulf region to obtain a PhD in biotechnology from the University of Cambridge. Dr. Sindi is one of the first 30 Saudi women to be appointed to the Shura Council, the parliamentary cabinet to the King of Saudi Arabia. And she was a visiting scholar at Harvard University, where I had the chance first to meet with her. And her lab work there earned her a place in a documentary film supported by the Executive Office of the President of the United States during the Barack Obama leadership at that time. And that documentary film was to promote science education among young people. So I was told that I have 2 minutes to introduce Dr. Hayat, so I'm trying to just be picky. Her biography is very long. I need at least 20 minutes to speak about all of her accomplishments. So in 2012, she was named a National Geographic Emerging Explorer. In 2014, she received the Clinton Global Citizen Award for leadership in civil society, recognizing her efforts in encouraging innovation among young people. So Dr. Hayat previously served as a senior advisor to the president of the Islamic Development Bank for Science, Technology, and Innovation. And during this time, she was voted one of the BBC's top 100 women in 2012, a list celebrating inspiring and influential women from around the world. In 2019, the World Academy of Sciences, or TWAS, awarded her one of its prestigious TWAS Medal Lectures in recognition of her groundbreaking work in biotechnology and her leadership as a woman scientist using innovation to serve the developing world and to promote science education. Dr. Sindi is also a UNESCO Goodwill ambassador, advocating for science education in the Middle East with a special focus on empowering girls. She also recently launched her global consulting firm called the Institute for Quality, and her exceptional contributions have earned her appointments to several esteemed international panels and boards. Just recently, she was honored with the 2024 Exceptional Women of Peace Award in Leadership in Science and Technology by Pathways to Peace, a UN Peace Messenger organization. We are deeply honored to have you with us today, Dr. Hayat, and we look forward to learning more about your journey and to learn from your lecture tonight. And without any further ado, the floor is yours. Please, everyone, join me in welcoming Dr. Hayat to NYU Abu Dhabi.
Let's just go back. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm delighted to address you all, and I'm so grateful for the invitation from NYU Abu Dhabi Institute. And tonight, I want to talk to you about the role of science in the Islamic world, how it contributed to our scientific foundations, and can guide our communities today, how East and the West can tweak science together and solve our most challenging problems. Modern science can be tracked back to the Islamic civilization. Beginning in the 8th century, Arabs, Persian, Indian, and the Greek civilizations contributed, producing a fountain of intellect and energy, the foundations of our civilization today. Science had a role in the early Muslim world. It was part of a scholarly activity to read, to learn, to know, and to act upon that knowledge. In the Islamic Golden Age, around 750 AD, we were lucky to have Islamic scholars who integrated knowledge and learned quickly. Great minds have contributed in mathematics, physics, chemistry, medicine, earth sciences, and even environmental sciences. These Islamic scholars were polymaths, integrated science with society. To get positive outcomes, they understood science, policy, and people's needs. Their inventions feeding life. My view is 3 important study areas helped this golden age happen. Mathematics and numbers. They allow us to predict the motion of planets, estimate when building materials will fail, and countless other valuable insights for humanity. Physics and optics. They bring us an understanding of the world and the pictures we steer by. Medicine and chemistry concentrates on biological molecules that control the operation of our body, potentially preserving life. So our Islamic scholars made amazing leaps forward. They opened doors hundreds and thousands of years later in Middle East and Europe, making a better world for us. To help convey their activities, here are 3 examples of scholars. And I should mention also that they were and they're still my scientific heroes. I will start with numbers and Al-Khwarizmi contributions. He wrote the compendious book on calculation by completion and balancing, showing how to balance and solve equations. A critical step to working with equations, effectively shaping modern maths, science, and engineering. Fairness in trade and inheritance stimulate his activity. But it was the beginning of equations in physics and math books of today. He started the Arabic system of numbers, and he was the first to describe the concept of zero. He created a map of the world, synthesizing 70 geographers' works. Later, this became the reference for the West's geographical knowledge. He invented the shadow square, an instrument for measuring the object and object height. His importance is indicated by naming the computing term algorithm after him. For me, developing calculations alongside people's practical problems showed his strong community focus. Now, let us move to healing our bodies and the insight of Avicenna, Ibn Sina. Some of his capability came from a powerful memory, learning the Quran by heart only age 10. He repeated these learning abilities with medicine, becoming a qualified medical practitioner at 18. What set him apart was learning from patients directly. He then wrote several books on medicine, such as Al-Qanun fi al-Tibb, the Book of Laws of Medicine, which comprises 14 volumes. This was used as the standard medical textbook in both Europe and Islamic Empire up until the 17th century. He brought us the Book of Healing, which is a discussion on logic, natural sciences, mathematics, and metaphysics. In total, he is believed to have written an incredible 400 works, of which 250 have survived, all while being a generous community doctor who often didn't charge. Now, the first true scientist, Ibn al-Haytham, and I believe that title. It's clear from his writings, truth was his driver. He actually defined scientific thinking, which is a huge contribution you consider what we have done with science today. He made foundational contributions to understanding vision, optics, and the light. His methods celebrated experiment to verify theories and reject misleading ones. To explore light and vision, he used a dark chamber he called al-Bayt al-Mudlim, the camera device for photography. He concluded vision is from rays entering the eyes from luminous sources rather than rays from the eye, as was commonly believed. He also found the soul, which is he derived from a thought experiments. This involved floating man disconnected from his senses. He had become scientific giant with a huge imagination powering experiments. Society is important to our scholars and the willingness to do good things. Here, people mention their problems directly, and using methods based on scientific truths, the scholars produce consistent results. Back then, our early scientists, our scholars, were immersed in society, working on the puzzle they enjoyed. It made true or sure inventions were created, along with the support of the scientists. This was not a flashy type of science, but a real science where they listened directly to the community, too many times repeated. How were the Islamic scholars adding this value? So what was the magic ingredient? Okay. The scholars added value through a triangle of innovation. Scholars, formidable imagination fueling ideas, the resulting inventions and products, and benefits improving the standard of life, providing a better environment to perform science. This is why this period was at the golden age, science was being seeded, and with the translation for Islamic scholars' words, the wisdom spread across the world. The scholars always put experiments first. They led these open-minded experiments and followed with corresponding theories that didn't trap them. They were open to them being changed. This perspective led to some of the best inventions. And here are some examples. Here are examples of the early inventions we know of. These core inventions have remained in our daily life. The camera in our phones, the scientific method supporting research around the world, disinfectant allowing us to control harmful microbes in our environment, cryptography used every day in our financial transactions, coffee roasting to develop that unique flavor people enjoy. Solving equation for all of engineering, and the horizontal windmill, which continues to work irrespective of the wind direction. All this type of invention, fuel will continue thanks to Islamic scholar method of science. So their imagination was powering the Golden Age. Even flight was attempted in the 9th century by Abbas ibn Firnas. Also, I have to mention in my research for answers, what surprised me was finding no scholars of electricity. Electricity is a fundamental to nature, and without it, modern society would instantly collapse. We don't have any evidence for it in books, but batteries were definitely found in Baghdad. The batteries have a copper cylinder and central iron rod, which is amazing. These could have been used for electroplating or lighting. I think scientific historians need to recognize we have incomplete stories. We must be open to possibility in early Islam that early Islamic scholars produced electricity, but documentation of the electricity story was lost. That loss could have had an impact on the things of these 4 model 20th century inventions that depend on electricity. If our ancestors had had Islamic electricity theory, civilization could have moved faster, and maybe today we could have reached the stars. This reminds me electricity is still young and really important knowledge to cultivate. So let's now shine a light on today and tomorrow and think about science and us. For today, at a personal level, are we really fitting science and technology to us to make a better life? Or are we being sold what we don't need? With big companies influencing us, basically technology that leads to ill health. I think everyone has their own opinion, but I'm sure if we walk an Islamic scholar from the Golden Age, they may not conclude science is working for us. Now, let us broaden the beam for today at the global level. Science and sustaining planets is of major importance, and most of us heard about the recommendation of the latest COP conference. This needs powerful sustainability policies related to the SDGs. Linking countries together, that was one major recommendation, is like how we can have a global collaboration. So we need to link in countries together for clean energy, environment regulation, and so on. So today, scientific challenges are uniting us, but we mustn't forget the obvious: engineering good homes, supporting travels, building relationships, and learning science. Take a look at these scientists working in our society. Who is the true scientist? Which are the best scientists? There is no right answer, but I just wanted to consider that scientists pointing in the right direction will not be isolated in labs. They are separated from the world here. I believe existing in a lab alone is the wrong image. Instead, we need community-based scientists too. To help develop this social dimension to science, we need action on social innovation now. By definition, social innovation is a novel solution to a social problem, more effective, just efficient, and sustainable than the current solutions. The right science and the talent change agents can turn things around, and I've seen that with my own eyes. And I'm glad to see increasing a little bit social innovation education with the great courses in place at the best universities. The concept is also in the Scientific Advisory Board report to the former Secretary General of United Nations, and I'm happy to be part of that change. This gives us a better chance for science to touch our families and communities. So we tweak science with wisdom from Golden Age. Now let us turn the attention to the future scientific trends that may indicate what we want as a society and for this region. First, let us consider clean natural energy. At present, optimizing today's clean energy is insufficient for people's energy needs, especially in the developing countries. So despite green technologies such as wind turbines, solar power, and energy from the sea, the world still depends on fossil fuels and nuclear power. As an alternative, I would like to flag abundant energy is all around us, natural energy, motions within atoms. With the right technology, I believe this could become the ultimate clean energy source. Further, empty space itself is full of energy. This is established science. So we are just missing the right technology to collect it. And I believe in you, you're going to make that. So please stay open to this possibility as our Islamic ancestor would have done. Less controversial than this free energy is the trend to develop technologies for life extensions. I know it will probably not be a good idea to live forever for the sake of the community, but conquering diseases, regenerating the body, and making cells strong again is a great way to remove suffering. There is a remarkable new industry building here. Take conquering viruses like COVID and challenging cancers or genetic disease. Now we can program the immune system against viruses, program the immune system to fight specific tumors, and program DNA through CRISPR technology, for example, to remove genetic diseases. This technology is all about tweaking information, reprogramming the human body to combat diseases, all adding to the quality of life and to lifespan. So watch this space. If we are talking of the most certain future, that would be robotics and artificial intelligence. Saving us from a labor and household chores. However, we need to think how we deal with it. Robots that do what people want is a game changer, but we will need to regulate it early and make sure we're maximizing the benefit. Today, robots and infants, and we now have the opportunity to fit it to our needs. But the time is running out. Soon these machines will exceed human intelligence because computer chip power and clever software are increasing, making our infant robots adults in the next few years or could be very soon. And here there is a real evidence in this growth curve. I believe there will be a transformation in society with mobile intelligence, machines, robots amongst us. I think we will have the advantage when it comes to imagination though. So looking to the future, we will need the campus of science properly aligned to make sure it's serving our families and our communities. Let us now pause and consider how East and the West work together for a better future. And where in these trends do we need more scientific strength? Personally, I would like to highlight the clean energy problem as the most important for our planet. That's my personal view. Low-cost clean energy creates fresh water from salt water, halt global warming, and restores services to part of the developing world, and so on. To solve this type of big problem, I think theories are limiting the technology of the East and the West. This problem applies particularly to theories that we are too confident about. The action for the East and the West is to first review all theories and possibly reject them. Second, retrieve inventors without formal training. I know some people will hate that to hear, but this action is important for breaking away from the past. It is important, and in this innocent, in their innocent state, their thoughts are not colored, helping them to see problems fresh, hence, inventor not bound to any institution or ideas as part of their career may be a fantastic resource for untapped inventions. And I was one of them. I'll come back to the questions. I think the East and the West need to at least start collecting information about these non-institution inventors. History has shown ideas can occur in the most unlikely places. Albert Einstein, in 1905, known as Einstein's miracle year, produced 4 famous papers. But he wasn't a scientist, physicist, mathematics in a university. He was a clerk in a patent office. For electromagnetism, for example, Faraday did his experiment and Maxwell analyzed them well over 100 years ago. For engineering, products is great, but deep levels are not understood. We don't know how magnets work. And we need to be truthful about the limits of theories. So I propose keep strengthening our imagination until we solve it. A flag that we were wrong is the physics of the very big thing, general relativity, and the physics of the very small thing, quantum mechanics. They contradict one another. They are powerful theories, again, for engineering, calculations. For example, the general relativity, we can precisely predict the bend of the light beam around the stars, or slow down the ticking clocks in stronger gravity. Or for quantum mechanics, we can calculate energy levels for the electrons and atoms very precisely, but they don't do a good job understanding how gravity or how atoms work. If anyone knew about limitations, Einstein did. He was honest about it. He is less certain of his theory than everyone else. He says there is no concept of his that he thinks will stand the test time. So please don't believe theoretical boundaries like the speed of light. That's what the theory says. Reality is a different thing. And now we have stepped into space with 3 commercial companies pushing to space. The public pathway to space now open. It's early days, and the price will come down, and the technology will get better. And one day, I believe, we will break the speed of light and travel to the stars. Ibn al-Haytham says that if learning the truth is the scientific goal, then he must make himself the enemy of all that he reads. So to get to the future and make science work for us, we need to be open to amazing mechanisms, and no physical laws can be broken. So don't be trapped by them. Only the imagination can see the future. And while I cannot predict what boundaries will be broken, what I believe I can predict is that with virtually everything born of science, from sustainability, healthcare, artificial intelligence, and so on, can come together to help us. And what we need to do, just as our forefathers would have done is to fit science to our need. Overall, my recommendation is we encourage the relationship between society and science that began in the 8th century and engage a stronger bond between science, technology, and innovation and our social needs that we lack. And industry must not steer us too much. It is the community that counts. Ultimately, with the policies encouraging breathtaking science, the sky is the limit. And with the connection to our neighbors throughout the world, we will be fit for our future challenges. And seeking the scientific truth in a way that Ibn al-Haytham suggested. Please put experiment first. Today there is a tendency for experiments to follow theory, with theory laws blocking our vision and creativity. We need to tweak that and be open to other insights. Theory laws are for breaking to solve challenging problems like poverty, like COVID and the next killer virus, like global warming, and allow civilization to progress. And we must remind ourselves of our scholar holistic view and ensure we don't let old ideas and theories spoil our imagination and let free the full potential of science. Thank you for your attention.
Great, thank you so much. Let me see if I can turn this on. All right, it's already on. Thank you so much, Dr. Hayat. Very inspiring talk and very exciting how to see the connection between the past and the present and the future as well. So we will open the floor for questions from the audience. We have two people holding the microphone. Just raise your hand in case you have a question, and the microphone will be delivered to you. First question, we'll take a chocolate, maybe. It's just a joke. Here, please.
Thank you very much for your talk. The three men you gave were all indeed impressive examples in terms of the history of science and philosophy. I'm wondering of the role of Ibn Sina as an example in terms of Islam and science, in that, I mean, both in his own estimation and in the estimation of others like Al-Ghazali, Ibn Sina was far from orthodox. Think of the eternity of the world, or I think the unity of the intellect, various Aristotelian ideas that didn't seem to fit well with any of the received scriptural views. Do you have advice on how to, I don't know if sifting is the right word, but how does one draw on a tradition of science and philosophy that is, you might say, theologically mixed, or something along those lines? What does one want to retain? What does one want to be wary of? If there are tensions, what do we do with those? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So do you mean how we can balance the traditional science with the most advanced science, or?
No, so Al-Ghazali, Ibn Sina would tend to side with Aristotle over Abrahamic scripture when he faced a choice. I don't assume that you're giving us that advice as well. I don't know if you'd have a view on those sorts of issues. But historically, they're very, that was a very lively controversy for a long time.
Well, my answer to this one, of course, remember, most of the scholars I mentioned, they also were philosophers as well. So they study philosophy, their viewpoint about life in universe and relation. So even though they have their own philosophy, maybe they can, some of them agree or not. But when we talk about what they really offer in terms of the concrete method of, like, for example, Ibn Sina, in terms of like surgery or discovery of surgical tools or learning from the patient, generation and after generation and century after century, they've been adopting his theory, and people, they can see what is fit or not doesn't fit. And at the end of the day, they're also human beings, and they have their own philosophy about things. But here, what I'm trying to mention in my talk is why I mentioned the three scholars, is because that the three main topics in the 8th century, affecting our lives now, and how they would go about it, even though it was like for them not another school of thought to learn from. It was directly from their own, putting experiment first, and how they can, by observation, as a fuel for scientists to be able to understand how they can, produce, their own finding and, write about it, and people will follow them. I hope that I answered the question, but yeah, thank you.
All right, so I'll ask everyone to introduce themselves before asking the question. The gentleman over here.
Thank you a lot for the nice lecture. I would say my name is Dr. Khalifa. I'm a psychiatrist by training. My question is actually in the same line, and what your answer is here. When we see Ibn Sina and many of the scientists in that period, they were not specialized, actually. You introduced them as a medicine, but as you say, he was a philosopher, he was religious. They have multiple interests. And maybe that was actually their, I would say, secret sauce, because even if you saw like Leonardo da Vinci and all those people, there was kind of poly in their interest. If I imagine like Ibn Sina now as a student, you will tell him you need to focus. You're all over the brain. You need to kind of select a specialization. You cannot be a philosopher and doctor and all that things in the same time. So what do you think about specialization generally and being a scientist?
It's a great question. So I did mention in my talk they were polymath, but because also they have holistic approach. And I think now, being involved in biotechnology, I was trained as a pharmacologist, so I studied cells and molecules, understand about the makeup of our own body. But after that, how am I going to apply my knowledge to be a product in the hand of community? So that's one, when it comes in biotechnology, is give me a holistic view and also social innovation. How can I link what I've learned and what do I need to learn? And now we come to the area when we have multidisciplinary, because now what we see, if somebody just wants to be specialized in one thing, he will have an invention. He will have, he will have an IP, yeah? But the IP is collecting dust. Not until we have the multidisciplinary type of holistic view and people integrate with their own different type of speciality to be able to have something that it can to go to the hand of the community. When I was at Harvard, I was very lucky to be in George Whiteside lab. And there they had an amazing idea about making paper, a device low cost from paper. I was involved, but we were 17 scientists, all our name in a patent. It could be, and that would be the thing we encourage. Most, people wanted to be solo and to have the fame. It's not about the fame, how I'm going to get that type of technology in the hand of the community. I cannot do modeling. I cannot do physics, but I can do cells, and I can understand how to engineer it, yeah? So by doing that, by having that type of collaboration, we have a device that can reach the hand of the community. So what my talk is a great, question for both of you is how we're going to look, I think, at holistic. Even with the ecosystem, if we want to create entrepreneurship or innovation or social innovation, what are the holistic view? And now I move, I'm a scientist, then I became social innovator when I thought social innovation was not, attracted by most of the students. So I started Institute for Imagination and Ingenuity. And from that, I became an advisor. From that, I became an investor. I set up 2 funds with the Islamic Bank, each one of them $500 million. So I had an eye for commercialization. And then I was, advising the King of Saudi Arabia. So I was involved with strategy and policy, and I loved it. Why? Because when you are just a scientist in a lab, your talents will be just localized. But when you can have a say on the direction of science, then you can reach bigger community. And I've seen that when I was working in Islamic Development Bank, what we can change in terms of policy and strategy to change the whole ecosystem of innovation in one of the African countries or developing country or Asia. So we need to have that approach of holistic. And you're right, the scholars, they know what they want. Of course, they're specialized. They know what is medicine. Abdul Haytham, true scientist, but they're also human. They're involved with life. They're not disconnected from life. They talk to the people. They understand what they need. They feel people. They feel problem. And that's why their invention, and it's like the penicillin and insulin, we call it miracle. It's not because it's miracle, because it saved millions of lives. So that type of what I wanted to encourage for the younger generation to look at things from a holistic point of view and go and do multidiscipline, develop yourself all the time. I had to go to Harvard Business School, and I felt for 3 months, the stupid person, I used to cry every day because it's not my area, but I was out of my comfort zone because if I didn't learn the business language, if I understand who is the competitors, how can I create a team, what type of funding I need, how to make execution, how to, who is my competitor, and what is the market, how am I going to generate an invention, it will help people. Because I will be always in my bubble. And I'm sorry to say, when I was in Cambridge, the first day when you are there, they knew what to tell you. You are here because you are the best of the best. And when I went to Harvard, they tell you, you know why you're here because you're going to control the world. So they put you in that bubble, an ego. That's I know everything. I'm the scientist, but it's not the case. Until I went to Harvard Business School, until I understand what it takes to commercialize things, always the idea will be collecting dust. And how many people are amazing and clever in the best university in the world, but their invention didn't see the sunlight. So that's what, hope that answer your question.
Excellent, thank you, Dr. Hayat. The gentleman. Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Sindi. I'm a nephrologist. I'm also quite interested to hear your thoughts. I'd like to start off with a comment. I'd like to congratulate NYUAD. I've been attending these lectures. They're fascinating, and it's a pleasure to be here. So, Doctor, I want to ask you a question. From your own personal experience, I had a chance to read your Wikipedia. You had to go to the West to reach your full potential. And you mentioned these big institutions you trained under. Now, this region is going through a renaissance, if you may. We have NYUAD, I'm part of Khalifa University, I'm part of an RDR lab. But what we're missing is that missing ingredient for real science to come out of here, true innovations, unicorns to come out. So what do you think is missing in this ecosystem so we can create those consortia you mentioned where you had physicians, scientists, engineers all come together to build something? Even though money is here, talent is here clearly, what is that is missing in your mind from your experience in Saudi Arabia now and from training abroad?
Thank you for the question. I was just like 2 weeks ago, I was at UNESCO delivering a talk on the latest science report from UNESCO on why the region here, what is the innovation index and why we lag behind. And I think in my iPad, if you don't mind, I can refer to the iPad. I summarized the points, but I don't know you were going to ask this question. So I left home very young to different country, to different region, and it was hard. It took 3 years to convince my family. Not because they're against education, because I come from Mecca, from 8 children, or all children. I never left home for tourism. The first time I left is for education. And my mom used to tell me, "You are the perfect child until you told us you want to travel." I wanted to become a scientist. So when I did I had a high grade, they always push you to do medicine. And I did, but I didn't like it, not because I don't like medicine, because it took a long time for me. I want to be discovered in a lab. So I wanted to do pharmacology. So to do pharmacology, back then, you need to do it part of medicine or pharmacy. So I left home to England, and I thought everything will be rosy, but it wasn't the case. I was rejected from everywhere, and they told me I'm crazy, I should go back home, and I will fail. You know, both Saudi Arabia and except my family and England, they told me I'm not going to make it. So it took persistence, it took courage, it took ingenuity, and finally I thought to myself, all the universities is full of people just like me. If I need to break the code to learn, I will learn. If they want me to learn the English, I will learn. If I wanted to learn science. So I went back 4 years back. I didn't mind. Because for me, the goal, how can I serve mankind? So, and then during my years there, I always think, what if my education and if my training can I bring back home and bring to the region? And that's why I started the Institute for Imagination and Ingenuity. But to tell you about, you know, I cannot get access to the notes, but because I have a summary of the science report from UNESCO about the region. So we lack the fundamental science. I think the STEM education and the poor teacher qualities. I think that's one of the reasons. So the creativity, the hands-on practical type of creativity should be as a subject, like learning English and religion and science, should be one of the subjects we teach children from early stage. Of course, certain countries varies from others. Other thing is the segmented STI ecosystem, and there's no connection between different institutions. Also, the funding for R&D is only 1% compare GDP, compare with other institutions or other countries. Also, one of the things is like the region is current situation, war and you know, climate change can affect it, you know, can make it unstable. Also, brain drain. That's one of the major also lacking in our, you know, but now we can see a lot of countries. I can see this country, I can see my country, Saudi Arabia, I can see other countries, Egypt, Jordan, that are really now moved to base science solutions. You know, for example, in Egypt, they're building cities all like, you know, environmentally friendly. Saudi Arabia putting a lot of money for AI, and also Emirates. So we are moving toward it, but we need also to have the fundamental science with the vision of the ecosystem of entrepreneurship and a new breed of investors, because we don't include investors from early stage. Because I was, you know, investor invested in my invention, but also the lack of him understanding what is biotechnology. After 2 years, he said, "Where is my return?" And that's, you know, it needs longer time. So that's also the culture of how we breed new type of private sector, and also what type of laws and regulations we should provide to them to secure, to make them happy, because also they need certain laws from governments to protect their assets, to protect their, you know, money. So also how we can link the ecosystem of IP, not just IP. We don't want to just create offices to IP. Anybody can, you know, have an IP unit, but how we can have a marriage between development, as you know, in MIT, they don't call it IP, they say development office, because the minute you say you have an idea, you sit with you and see how that will be commercialized, because they're not interested just in an idea. They're interested in how that idea of yours is going to lead to a commercialization. And that should be the way, and that's what the Islamic scholar always, when they started solving problems, solving an issue that already happening, and see how their talent can. So I hope I answered the question. So it's all there in the science report, the latest one of UNESCO, and it's there. And I propose an initiative there, and hope, inshallah, it will happen.
Thank you so much. And I believe, you know, learning and educating our new generation about science and technology during the Islamic civilization will help us to reimagine how we can get back on track and have, you know, our present and future science and technology flourishing in the Islamic countries, in the Arabic countries, as well as the entire world.
That's a great point, but always sometimes, like, they always say we had the scholars. and also very safe to be in the shoulder of the giants. But we need always, when we mention the scholars, we link them how the new generation going to also make a difference. I think that connection is important. We did, okay, and then what happened? We lack. Why we lack? And how we going to prepare them, tell them, okay, that's what happened, how you link what we have now for the future, for the sustainable world. Yeah, great point.
Excellent.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, please, the gentleman.
Hello, thank you for excellent talk. My name is Mark Beach. I'm from the Natural History Museum Abu Dhabi, which is just here near to NYU Abu Dhabi. I really liked your talk, especially you mentioned the importance of community connection with science. I think one of the things about science is that people think only people in white coats in laboratories do it in separate institutions, whereas community is the most important thing. Some of the elements of the gentleman that you highlighted in your talk is this critical observations and recording things and having critical thinking about that. I just wanted to hear your opinion, because one of the key things nowadays is citizen science, and of course natural history museums, we like to promote people in the community to report scientific observations. Science isn't just about something that happens in a laboratory in NYU Abu Dhabi. It happens all around us because we live in nature, and it's very important that people make these observations, and even children can make scientific contribution by, reporting. You see an insect, a leaf, a particular bird in a particular location, and we need to be using mobile technology, AI, etc., to capture this scientific records, because this is a record of biodiversity and of climate change, and you highlighted exactly very important points. But yeah, just my question is the future role of citizen science, how we encourage this to be embedded in the education curriculum following the previous point. I think this is very important, and we hope the Natural History Museum will help with STEM education in the Saadiyat Cultural District, but we need to encourage the schools and all participants to help in this, to educate people. Science is not just carried out by people with PhDs from Cambridge, Stanford, whatever, but everyone can contribute, I think.
Excellent question, and that's exactly what the conclusion of my talk. You put it very exactly right, and also this type of change has to be from top to bottom and bottom up as well. So by the right, like for example, let's talk about Uganda. Uganda in like 2015, you cannot walk in the street because it's like civil war, but now Uganda is the Switzerland of Africa. I met the president and I met many ministers who are really completely different way of thinking, because he loved innovation, and he integrated that type of thinking in all laws and regulations. So the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, wherever they put innovation as a part of their, mandate. So that definitely will influence the type of education, the quality of teacher, the application, what I'm looking for, the direction of the economy, because innovation is any a country strongly, in innovation, a strong economy everywhere. So that type of mindset changed the whole thing, and then from that, it will be a perfect outcomes. So exactly what you said. I was in, and I gave this talk for 50 people, and all of them children from age 8 to 10. And when I asked him who draw for me a picture of a scientist, of course there has to be white hair, it has to be with the glasses. You fit very well, but with a mustache, you don't have a mustache. And some of them wrote for me. That's enough for them to write for me, to draw for me. I just glasses. And when I asked him who was your hero, all of them named dead people. That's my phone. Oh, sorry. Yeah, dead people. You know, Einstein, Mercury. But we have an amazing Nobel Prize winners. But where are they from reaching out to communities? When I became National Geographic explorer, they did a great job. You know, when they teach English to non-foreign, they removed all the pictures of Hollywood stars and they put real people with the real invention. And they go to students and you surprise them, you're there. So the students, like they say, I see this invention and you are here, so I'm just like you. That type, because when I was growing, the picture of scientists, I used to tell my father, are they really human being? And he used to tell me, yes, why? And I said, I cannot see anybody look like me. So I always think science is out of reach. I cannot make it because look, all the scientists, they don't look like me, either a fuzzy hair of Einstein or Marie Curie or somebody with a turban. I mean, I don't fit. And my father used to tell me with his simple language, Hayat, with education, you can reach anything in life and you could be one of them one day. That type of encouragement, and he encouraged me so much, and he used to bring me all these books to read, and he'd take me to the library. So I was in love with them. I wanted to be like them. So he encouraged us. So also family is important, also parents, also teacher, also the laws and policy. So the direction of any country should be always aligned with their economic stability and how I'm prepared the nation for the fourth industrial revolution. So if the outcome of the university doesn't match the labor, I cannot find them jobs, nobody will do. Because I asked the students, the little girls, from 6 to 10, I said, what do you want to be in the future? All of them, they said doctors, and one of them, she said, one lawyer. One of them said, one of them lawyer, the rest of them medical doctor. And I said, why you don't want to be a scientist? And she said, quickly, she said, I cannot make money. She's 8 years old. So that's what the drive for her is like. If I become a scientist, you cannot make money. Don't listen to this, okay? you can be, like Elon Musk, So that's type of encouragement also. What are the incentive and the motives also for social innovators? Changing a valve back there, up there in NASA, the same thing you are changing a new way of energy in a rural area in the developing countries because the impact also huge. So that type of thing, yes, definitely. So it is the whole ecosystem. Thank you.
Excellent. And speaking about which, the young man over here in the front. So he's my son, so I try to ignore him, not to have conflict of interest, but he has a burning question. Okay. So let's see.
Okay. My question is at the start you said, I think Ibn al-Haytham, that he memorized the Quran when he was 10 years old, right? But
Ibn Sina.
Ibn Sina. He memorized the Quran when he was 10 years old. But I mean, memorizing the Quran when you're young is something amazing. But what does it have to do with science? At the start, my dad, he said about how you got into top 100 inspirational women. But the Quran, it doesn't really have anything to do with science and the topic you're talking about. So I want to know, is there any relationship between the religion and science, anything that's mentioned?
Great question. And all the scholars, if you look at Einstein and Newton, all also were religious. When I said memorize the Quran, is about his ability for memory and how he can. That's very important when you are a doctor as well. So by training his brain cells to memorize also helped him when he became a doctor to memorize, the facts and in the name of drugs and how to operate. And that's power, because when you go to a doctor, is the key thing that the doctor distinguishing from another, how he diagnose, how he come to the right diagnosis, and that's also come from his understanding, memorize, understand how to connect things. The Quran is a book of life, is a way of life, and also as a human, for me, whatever religion you come from, even if you don't have a belief, that also what is your relationship with this universe? When I came to Cambridge, they told me religion doesn't go with science because everything is created by Allah, so there is no creativity in you. And I said, we are not here to discuss who created this. We are here to discuss why it made this way. Even if you believe in Allah or Jesus, whatever or you believe in Planet X or Mother Nature, it's still extraordinary power or being is there. So we are here to discuss why. So for me, when I mentioned that is his relationship, because if you are really part of this universe, you need to think about how you're going to elevate suffering. What is your, you have to have a drive. You have to have a goal. You know, why you want it to be when you grow up in the future. You know, what I'm going to help the society, how I'm going to make a difference. For example, how I'm going to grow up and have a cleaning water instrument that saves 5 million. We lose 5 million children every year by polluted water. So that's the way I mentioned it, because as one of the, somebody who asked, they were philosophers, they understand about the point of view about life, universe, and what the linkage. Now everybody's talking about how we can connect together, how we can collaborate together. Also, that's also a connectivity, how we're going to relate to one another, how sometimes tradition, values, and religion can stop innovation sometimes or can promote innovation. So that's why important to your question when you went about transition or traditional medicine, how we're going to include indigenous people in the equation. Because they have so much knowledge, they survive hundreds of years, you know, depending on their own survival methods. And definitely there is something about it, how I'm going to cultivate that, how come to build on that, to be able to use it to, for example, many countries survive drought, flooding, earthquakes, killing viruses, war. How did they manage that? That's a knowledge embedded within society. I cannot ignore that. So all the scholars I mentioned, they are part of society. They're part of the link between their existence. You know, when we're all going to leave, what I'm going to leave behind. You know, how I'm going to have a goal in life. When you have a goal, it will take you, it will inspire you, and it will make you special in terms of what you learn and how you give back knowledge. And that's التميز تميز. Yes, so you have something because you value time, you value learning for the sake of learning, not just memorizing things, for the sake of learning, and what I'm going to link that to me as Hayat, as you, as Muhammad. What is my relationship with this universe? So we have to look at our planet Earth.
Excellent, thank you so much. We have a question here in the front and one question on the back before we close. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for the talk. My name is Sarah. I'm a third-year student here. I'm studying physics with a specialization in astrophysics. So I want to be a scientist. I came to your talk, the role of science in the Islamic world, and this is actually a question for both of you. So one part of the Islamic world is that it was, the Golden Age especially was caught up in a time where Islam was not set to just the Middle East, but Islam was very prominent in countries like East Africa, North Africa, West Africa, and the rest of Africa, mostly these three regions. I found it like a bit unfair that, I came and I didn't see anything about Africa, or for example, the engineering of the pyramids or astronomy in East Africa. And it came a lot in even the oceans, the trade between Africa and the Middle East. There's a lot of science. And so I just like to know more about the Islamic world in terms of Africa, because I am African. I'm half Sudanese, half Kenyan. And I want to be a scientist, and Islamic world is my community. It's my society, but I also want to know more about my people in this regard. Thank you so much.
When I mentioned Arabs, Persian, Greek, and some of the African countries also considered from Middle East, from Arabs. So you Sudan from Arabs, Egypt from Arabs, Morocco is even though in Africa. So I'm not here to discuss like certain region, but I'm talking in general. And tapping the people I've selected, that's my personal view, because the consider the three main areas like affecting our lives today, like mathematics, physics, and medicine. But of course, yes, and I think even though now when my best, people I work with, scientists, come from Sudan, from Nigeria, from Senegal, from Morocco, I mean, all Africa. I mean, I'm saying to you, when I started the fund, everybody said, yeah, you're going to fail. There will be no innovation in the developing countries, because when I worked in Islamic Development Bank, all 57 countries from developing countries, 22 of them least developed countries. The best, and I used to do national competitions, now I have in Goosebumps, the best ideas come from the least developed country, from Niger. Because when I did national competition there, it gave me the flavor of what are the young generation thinking of. And most of the innovation, they came with in agriculture, because drought and how they can to have better crops and that they can survive drought. Amazing, being coming from the poorest country doesn't mean you're not smart, and that was the whole idea about that fund. And always the top 3 students come from Africa, and of course Asia, from Bangladesh, from all the people at student I work with, they're amazing. So I don't really have a preference. What I really do know that community, when you give young people the tool to shape their own future, sustainable future, they do it with pride and honor. And the outcome is huge. So we need to believe in them. We need to give them opportunities. Always, I believe, giving people a chance. Do not sometimes some people always demotivate you by the way you look, where you come from, the way you talk, what you want to be in the future, and very easy for us to fall in and adopt the way of thinking. But I do always say, stay positive, treat your mind like a garden, cultivating the good things and beautiful things, because great mind had a positive energy. So always have positive energy. So what I'm trying to say is, given a chance, the great ideas come from the local community. They know there are challenges. They come with amazing ideas you will never think about. Most of the things that I gave, for example, I remember I talked to you when I came to give you a lecture. We give them $100,000. Their company now evaluate 20 million, 30 million, because they tackle certain problem, are genius, and then other big company picked on them, and they were like their, Zor, when he designed a solar refrigerator from solar energy, they were, the target for AstraZeneca when they wanted to mobilize the COVID. They were the only one can mobilize refrigerator, in the border between Mozambique and Uganda. So I'm saying, innovation, they are great everywhere, especially with the local communities. Do not underestimate them.
Definitely, yeah. Thank you so much. You elaborated enough about it. But when we speak about the golden Islamic era, which usually in my classroom we have a debate, should we call it Islamic civilization or Arabic civilization? If you look, regardless what you call it, and usually the outcome of the debate, we start thinking about more innovative titles. Because it's not only Islamic, it's not only Arabic. And why we say that? Because many non-Muslim scientists were very famous and did a lot of efforts during that era. And why not to call it Arabic? Because many non-Arab scientists from Africa, from Greece, from Egypt, from Persia, so they were like key players during that era of civilization. And sometimes we say, okay, let's call it Arabic Islamic civilization, or maybe we can come with more creative and innovative title. So regardless what we call it, so people from around the world gathered, learned from each other, and did creative work, and science flourished. And that's why we call them golden sciences or golden era. And if you go to people in Europe that they know nothing about this era, they call it the Dark Ages, right? So I think our duty here is to bring awareness and to study that era and to learn more about it. So maybe you have the chance now to dig deeper about the African science during that era or after or even before, because we all know that what the people in Europe call it like Arabic numbers now, that, well, the Arabs took it from from Indians. So we call them the Indian numbers. Even the making of the paper and the press, so the Islamic scholars during the Islamic civilization borrowed the technology from China. So it's clearly looking at the history, we learned that these efforts and this civilization get created by collaboration and learning from each other.
And that's why we call it an Islamic Golden Age, because the Islamic Golden Age, when they give the remember the triangle of innovation I mentioned, that give that right environment then. So civilization all mixed. They didn't like the Arab wake up and they have all this invention. No, it was a mix of all civilization and learn from each other. And that triangle was provided for scientists. And that's why they had the secret.
So I promised someone on the back who's one of my students, so it must be okay, sure. Definitely, you have the rights. Brilliant question.
Hello. So firstly, I would like to thank you for sharing your insights along the way. It was lovely to hear from you. My name is Sabik. I'm a junior. I'm majoring in economics. And as Professor said, I'm one of the students in Professor Muhammad's class, that's Missions in Islamic Civilization. So the question I was wondering is that you see the slide that's being displayed right now, that we should not let old ideas spoil our imagination. I was just curious because in our class, we learn how the innovations and designs of scientists like Banu Musa brothers, Al-Jazari, Al-Khwarizmi are taken as basis and then developed upon to create innovations and machines in the present age. So my questions was, and we also saw how Al-Jazari developed on the designs of Banu Musa brothers, and he went on to create amazing machines. And in that case, I was wondering, where do we draw the line when we look at the past and refer to the past to innovate in the present? Because if we don't let old ideas spoil our imagination, that also means simultaneously we are not, or we are disregarding sort of that basis. So just wanted to hear more from you that where do we draw the line here? And if there is a line to draw in the first place.
Excellent question. And I always say observation is the fuel for true scientists. And there, the Al-Jazari, Ibn Sina, Ibn al-Haytham, they put experiment first. And then they follow with the theories, you know. And they don't stop there to be scared or be trapped by the old theories. Whereas, for example, now, if you wanted to contradict Einstein or talk about Newton or even Al-Jazari, you were always your idea thrown down the flame, because, as I mentioned, we are very safe to be in the shoulder of a giant. You know, I mean, 100 years ago, and still the electromagnetism. I mean, the Maxwell and Faraday until now has not been challenged, and until now we don't understand electricity. Until now we don't understand about electromagnetic, how it provide that type of energy. It could be a miracle, because I mean, and I mentioned in my talk, when I became in biotechnology, I had no clue about engineering, and I had to learn. So when I come to the innovation and why I made the breakthrough is because I come with no fear. I was not colored. I came very innocent. I looked at the problem. I said, why would you do that? Everybody said, no, you can't do that because so-and-so equation said you cannot do that. You cannot do that. I said, let me try. I'm doing something different. I'm applying this in water, in wet environment. He did it for dry, for mass. And it happened, and that theory now is being taught everywhere because I came with no fear. So what I'm trying to say to all of you, any theory can be broken. And if great scholars in the past, if they put their own finding on experiment and observation, and that's the key thing of the true success, and could be your observation now could contradict that. It's not like a religious book that we cannot argue with. No, I'm saying keep all the time, imagine the next step, stay positive, and, observe and learn and see how, theory can help you or not. Otherwise, we cannot move on. I mean, until now we have theories. We cannot dare to talk about it because, you know, either we don't come from the right place, or we didn't come from the right institution, or we come from different era.
Thank you so much.
Last question.
Yeah, you have the golden pass.
Here's your.
The lady over here.
Hi, thank you so much for your talk and the work you do. It's very inspiring. My name is Sophia. I'm an NYUAD community member, but I come from a healthcare tech, digital health implementation background. My question is largely from my experience working with US healthcare system and also with Singaporean healthcare system, where there is an existing structure, and I think the more structure you build over time, the tendency is to be more risk adverse. At least the culture I have found to be that. And my question is twofold. On an individual level, I think your encouragement to seek experimentation and try to see beyond theory. I think often people tend to gravitate first to theory because they're risk adverse, or they want to, you know, first stick to what's there first. And so I wanted to ask you, what would be your advice to give courage to those who are at that crossroad where, you know, you're not necessarily sure? And then the second part to the question is, when you find yourself in a structure that is risk adverse and profit maximizing, how do you have any suggestions or things that you have found to work well, that are effective in shifting that culture to be more focused on social innovation, in a way that perhaps, you know, you find yourself in a very risk-adverse structure that is resistant to these methods? Yeah, I'm curious if you have any suggestions in those environments.
Great questions. So when I did first, and I won the first prize from Harvard and MIT for the social innovation, and everybody told us that we're not going to make it, and that was the year, first time ever MIT give the first prize to nonprofit. It was not in the DNA. But I went through, and I said to most of the VCs there to judge our technology, 40 of them, I said, you're going to vote for us because also saving lives is saving economy. So, and then when I've been announced by PopTech to be social innovator, I found my family. I understand what you're talking about. Because when I was still at Harvard, students were fixed on their 10-year, making publications and, you know, grant. Nothing wrong with that, but also we need to take them out of the box, tell them that your innovation, your talent can save lives. So I think for me, just to find the right family. You know, certain structure, there need to be certain structures. You cannot change that. You know, you cannot change that. There's just institutions that structure this way because they need to be this way. But also find your family, that people like you, magnet, attract the people that the same way of thinking and believe and what you want to be in the future. And so many of them, you know, search for them and they will find you and you will find them. It's like the way I did, you know. I didn't stay like, you know, I could stay in a science lab until now, but I'm always out of my comfort zone. You know, I become social innovator out of my comfort zone. I learned biotechnology. I was, you know, pharmacology out of my comfort zone because I wanted to design devices. You know, I don't want to be just making drugs. I want to design the device to understand how can I make the drug better. Understand about the side effect, because the molecular body, still we don't know much. You need a device to understand what is the makeup of our body. You know, the things that we have, very practical thing, like, you know, you put it like 96 wells in immunoassay type and they give you a reading, but doesn't tell you exactly the real time what's happening when certain drugs go to the system. Is all by assumption, close, not real what's happening. So I wanted to be, so I have no clue about engineering. They told me if you want to be, you have to learn. And it's, you know, crying, that's common thing. I used to cry because I don't understand. You know, when they give me all this biotechnology paper, it took me 9-10 hours to understand the first page. It's not my language. I understand pharmacology. I talk to you about cardiovascular. I talk to you about, you know, neuroscience. I can talk to you about inflammation. I know I graduated with honors, but I don't know anything about engineering. But I wanted to understand how I can make this good marriage, because biotechnology, I understand about the technology, the limitation of technology, and the limitation of the biological layer, because many doctors, they want a device can do wonder. He doesn't understand the limitation of the circuits or electricity and so on. And a lot of, physicists, they design for you, they're like a carpenter, the best chair, but he doesn't understand. You're tall, you have a problem with your back, you have a problem. He doesn't know how to design that fit to your biology. So that the marriage is almost doesn't fit if you have the physicists and the biologists do their own thing without having understanding what is the limitation for both. And then when I went to also to understand about business, and then when I started to know about policy and strategy, when I was in Shura Council, when I was appointed in Shura Council, a lot of people rejected. They said, Hayat cannot be there. I understand it's not the right environment for scientists, but I wanted to have a voice. I wanted to understand how can I steer science for the next generation, because it's very difficult to find scientists articulate the importance of science to the decision makers. How we can tell the story. We lack, we don't know. So communication is very important. I left to learn communication. How to talk about science. How can I make it easier? How can I draw the decision maker attention? Because the change happened there, not from me. If he doesn't have the laws or the funding to do certain policy in a country, you're always going to be effective in your mind. So diverting from your question, I say, what I'm trying to say to you, find your own community and your family. And there are plenty of people there like you want to make a difference. Because sometimes the institution need to be there and there is not their fault and you cannot go against them. I mean, I'm telling you, Dr. Muhammad, I cannot be in a lab all the time. I need to be there feeling people, be also an investor looking for ideas and how I challenge them and how can I patent it and how can I have a commercialization from that and who will be the right investor, who will be the right team to bring them. I love also that. How can I make the right recipe for something I see benefit mankind? So I hope I answered your question, Sophie.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Hayat. Please join me thanking Dr. Hayat again.